What's up guys, it's Alex from Sailing SV EOS. This video is part 3 of our series of what it's like to buy your first sailboat. If you watch part 1 and part 2, you'll be all caught up, and if you haven't seen those yet, check out the description for those links. Now before this one gets started, I have to say that we lost a bunch of footage of our conversation, but it wasn't stuff that was all too important, and I'll be able to recap you right now. At the end of part 2, Andrew talked about how he's going to live at home and leave his boat out of the water for the whole winter. And it was around this time that Madison and I were talking, and we decided that we too wanted to live on a sailboat. So we reached out to Andrew and we said, hey, if we come work on your boat and help you get it seaworthy and ready to go, can we live on it with you? And he was like, yep, sounds good to me. The only issue was that Andrew's boat was in New Jersey and we lived in Massachusetts. That was more than a 4-hour drive away every time we wanted to work on the boat. So we knew this wasn't going to work. Andrew then decided to hire somebody to tow his boat up to a marina in Rhode Island, so it was much closer. It became about an hour to 45-minute drive from where we were living. The only problem was, the boat was scheduled to be moved in March, right around the same time that the coronavirus struck. So all the marinas closed down and the guy wasn't able to get to the boat. Fast forward a few months, it wasn't until the last week of May that Andrew's boat made it to Rhode Island. And we had been planning on working on it all spring, so from March, April, and then May, we were hoping to get a bulk of the work done. With our plans delayed, we got right to work on Andrew's boat. We're not going to go too much into detail on the boat work right now. We're going to save that for a different video. Long story short, everything in the boat needed to go. The interior was completely rotted and covered in mold. Every little piece of metal on the boat was corroded and needed to be replaced. The engine had some severe oil leaks and needed to be rebuilt. Fast forward again after we put in hours and hours of work, and you'll end up right here at the beginning of part 3, where we will be discussing what's going through our minds at this point in the project when we realize that this boat is a way more work than we expected it to be. So I'm going to stop talking about this and we can go back to when we first recorded it and you can listen to me talk about it then. Now at this point I was like, oh man, so everything's gotta go. I was like, that'll be pretty cool. We'll get to completely make the boat, the interior of the boat, ours. We can design it ourselves, we can build it. It seemed like a pretty exciting project. Is that what you were thinking too?
Yeah, no, I was pretty excited. Like, I was worried because I knew that as well as everything we saved would have saved us time, everything we saved us a lot of money. This was my boat only, so I was bankrolling the whole project. So I was starting to get a little worried about how much money this was going to cost, but I still had a job, so
yeah,
I was pretty excited to be able to like actually draw up our own plans for a floor plan on the boat and all that.
When did you start to regret your decision to buy this boat?
It was probably right around that point in time when we were talking about just having to put the floor back in. So I wouldn't say I regret it, but it was around this time where I started to get really concerned with how much money we were going to have to spend rebuilding the boat. Just because of like materials. Even if we're doing all the labor, like we were going to have to buy tons of wood.
Yeah.
To redo the floor, and that was just for the floor. So we spent a while actually not working on the boat. It was like 2 weeks, I think, where we just didn't go down to the boat.
Right.
And during those 2 weeks, I was thinking about it a lot, and I was just like, oh man, I don't like living here. I don't like the winters here. In order for us to finish this boat, I had started to realize that it was going to take much longer than just this summer.
Yeah.
I mean, we thought we were going to have that boat in the water by like right now. It should have been in the water. And even if we had continued working on it every day, or like I was working on it like 4 or 5 days a week, it wouldn't even have been nearly done. Not even close. It was during that 2 weeks where we weren't going down that I started to realize that like this was not a good purchase. Every boat has an owner somewhere. Somewhere there's somebody that would have loved to have that boat. But one of the mistakes I made that we talked about earlier was not knowing what kind of boat I needed. And this boat is a project boat. This is a boat for somebody that likes fixing boats, which wasn't bad. I didn't mind fixing the boat. It was a fun project to do. But at this point, I and you guys wanted to be cruisers, not boat project people.
Boat mechanics.
So this was the point where it became obvious that like this wasn't the right boat for us.
And at the same time as you came to that realization, Madison and I we were dealing with a lot of things too, such as my car that I was driving had a whole bunch of issues with it and I ended up having to get rid of it. And so it's August and in my head I was like, we were supposed to be living on a boat, which when we were going to live on a boat, I was going to sell my car anyways. So when my car stopped working, I was like, man, I don't want to spend all that money on a car. I was supposed to spend all that money living on a boat. So Madison and I had a few discussions about what we wanted to do. One of the things we thought about was, what if we buy our own boat that's not Andrew's, because his is terrible?
Thanks, guys.
It's not livable.
Not livable.
Right now.
Right now. It's a great boat. Just needs work and love.
Yeah, it's a great boat for somebody.
But so we thought, what if we buy our own boat and we go live in a marina temporarily near Madison's work? I was working too, but not that much, so if I end up not going to that job, wouldn't be the end of the world, and I would be able to find work near the boat so that I could walk to work, she could catch a ride with a coworker. So we started to look at these boats, and we hadn't talked to Andrew, and so I remember I messaged Andrew. We had come to this decision that we didn't really want to live on Andrew's boat because we wanted to go somewhere by winter for sure, and it wasn't to Rhode Island on a boat. It was hopefully somewhere warm on a boat. So I remember I reached out to Andrew and I said, hey Andrew, I need to talk to you about our plans. And I already mentioned to Andrew that we probably wouldn't want to live on the boat in the winter and work on it. So he had in his mind that we were going to leave his project.
Yeah.
I remember he said, oh, there's actually something that I wanted to talk to you about too. So we made plans to meet up and talk about it. I think I told you our plan, that we were looking at boats because we didn't want to buy another car, and then you told us.
I told Alex, my girlfriend and I, who lived in London, had split up mutually, but we had split up because I wanted to be a cruiser and she wanted me to move to London to like settle down, and I decided I couldn't do it. So I basically gave up my relationship to do the boat thing. At the same time, you were telling me that you guys were considering abandoning ship.
Yes.
I knew at this point I knew I wanted to be a cruiser, or I wanted to try being a cruiser, but I didn't necessarily know if it was going to be on that boat. That was when I was talking to you and you had said you wanted to go buy a boat. I said, well, why don't we just go buy a boat in Florida then?
Yep.
If you guys don't want to be on the boat that we have and you don't want to be somewhere cold, I don't want to be somewhere cold either, so
we came to the decision that Andrew is okay with selling his boat to somebody that is looking for a project boat, and we would go down somewhere warm and buy a boat together.
Yep, a new boat.
Yeah, one that's in a better condition to start, though we'll take some time to customize and whatever. And then hopefully we're looking to buy one a bit bigger than the 33.
I was looking for boats from 36 to 50.
Because ideally we could all live on it comfortably. So that is our current plan. We will get further into our plans in other videos. Things are in progress. So Andrew's boat is on the market. It is for sale. Hopefully somebody will buy it soon, because pretty much as soon as it's bought,
we can start leaving.
I want to hear, what would you have done differently?
The first thing I would do differently is, before you even start the process of looking for boats, you need to focus on yourself and your expectations. So you need to be aware of what you're looking for, what you want to do with the boat, and also you need to set realistic expectations. Like we had mentioned earlier about a lot of people finding boats for very, very short amounts of money. Like, if you guys have ever seen the channel like Sailing Uma, I think they bought their boat for $3,000.
They bought their boat for $3,000. It didn't have an engine on it, but that's their story. You can look it up. And I've heard stories of people buying project boats for $1.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, it does, but don't count on that. You gotta go into it looking to spend a realistic amount of money. And you gotta know what you want, because a boat that's for somebody who wants a project is not the same boat for a liveaboard, it's not the same boat for a cruiser, it's not the same boat for a weekend person, right? It's like, if you don't know what you're gonna do with the boat, you're really risking buying the wrong boat for you.
Chances are you're not gonna get the right boat.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things that go into boat design more than just
floating on the water.
Yeah, because it's hard, at least it was hard for me, not knowing a lot about boats, like what those differences were. But knowing things about, like, you know, if you're going to be doing long distance cruising, you're going to want a keel that can support being grounded. Like if you're a racer, you don't give a crap.
Yeah.
If you're a liveaboard, you don't give a crap. You don't need to worry about what the keel looks like. You don't need to worry about the seacocks that much. Like, you don't have to worry about them taking impacts. There's a lot of things that aren't immediately apparent when you're looking into boats. So our card got full, and
yeah, we talked for who knows how long.
It was probably like 15 minutes, but
and the card was full. So
oops.
Biggest takeaway from this whole experience, Andrew?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is just not to let your emotions get in the way of a logical buying process, because so many of the problems I ran into, especially rushing through the process, could have just been avoided by looking at this rationally and like a process rather than just start here, get boat.
You had mentioned the thing about, I think this was something that we lost, that idea of start here, get boat, and then end up with the wrong boat.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it is that you said?
No.
You were saying...
I really do have a terrible memory, by the way, guys. You'll probably get used to that if you're not used to it by now. Maybe you're going back in time and watching this video. Things probably haven't improved.
You were saying that if you go into the process that I need to get this boat, then you might end up in a market where there's no boats in your price range, there's no boats that were meant for you, and then you end up making the wrong purchase.
Right. Basically what happens is if you're really just trying to get to the end goal of owning a boat, you're going to push way more outside your boundaries than you should be, because you just want to get a boat. You're like, oh, well, maybe there's none for 10,000, so I'll go to 12. And then there's none for 12, so you're like, I'll go to 13 or 14, and then you end up buying like a $13,000 boat or something when you only had the budget for 10, rather than if you waited until there was a boat in your price range.
And the same is true for type of boat. Right. You know, if you're just rushing, you might not end up with the type of boat that you need. That pretty much puts a wrap on this whole process and our first video that we've filmed. If there's anything you could take away from watching this video is I hope you use Andrew's experience as a lesson of what not to do. We are obviously not experts at buying boats, but we certainly, well, Andrew certainly struck out with what he wanted the first time. He did not strike out because he completely failed, but it just wasn't what he wanted.
Yeah, it ended up not being.
Well, what you wanted changed.
And I'm probably going to have spent like $7,000, so, you know, we'll just consider that like a college course. And now we're sharing the course with all you guys.
It was a learning experience. And that right there is a really good mindset when it comes to sailing and boating and stuff like that, is that you're always going to end up in a scenario where maybe you didn't want to be, whether it's even just nothing serious, just like time, you're like, man, this is taking forever. And if that type of stuff really bothers you, I think that maybe being a live-aboard cruiser is probably not the best place for you. So I think that the fact that Andrew is able to cut his losses and accept that this is a learning experience and he's ready to move on is it gives me hope that when we actually go buy a boat that he's going to be a pretty good crewmate and
I hope so. Yeah.
and we'll be able to survive on the water.
You guys have rolled with the punches really well too.
Thank you guys for watching our video or listening to it if you're listening to it on the podcast. Like we said, we're going to be doing both videos and podcasts. We're going to be filming our whole adventure from here all the way to Florida, to buying a boat, to living on the boat, to eventually sailing. And we really hope that you guys will join us. So look out for us on all the different platforms. So check out the description for any information. We're going to start it now, even though we don't really have that content and there's no way to guarantee that you guys know that we will have content. But we're going to start a Patreon. And the idea behind the Patreon is that we will give you guys stories, adventures, experiences. We're going to share them with you, hopefully inspiration. We're going to make the Patreon available so that maybe someday we can live full-time on the boat with no worries about needing to come off and make money wherever we are. So if you liked Andrew's story and if you think you're going to like who we are, definitely subscribe to the podcast or the YouTube and keep an eye out for when we come up with more stuff.
And by no means feel obligated to support us on Patreon, you know?
Yeah.
We would love to have people support us. Going for a dive over there?
I wasn't sure if Anton was behind the couch or not.
Yeah, let's find that little guy and we'll just punch him in.
Yeah, go grab him. But I'll keep talking about the supporters while we go here. You know, we want to make content that people enjoy, and the more time we spend working, the less time we can cruise and the less time we can make content. So we greatly appreciate anybody supporting us, but absolutely don't feel obligated to, you know? Now we gotta end on.
And we
This
just...
is our fourth crewmate.
This little guy is going to be on the boat with us.
Hoist the mainsail.
Boat cat. Like we said, we hope we make content so good that you guys want to support us.
Oh! Anton's out.
And enter my dad.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.
I thought you were off the air.
Nope.
We did, but then the card was all goofed up.
Yeah,
And we had to
we
reshoot
screwed
that.
up. Classic.
The red light was not on.
The card
I know.
failed.
Oh, so he knew.